Big performances for many of the Lakers on the gridiron last night, especially those guys coming up the depth chart from JV up to varsity in 2024. Here for more analysis of last night's game, Matt Catoni, our color commentator on our weekly broadcasts as the Lakers pick up the big win. Matt, an exciting night for the Lakers to kick off the season.
Exciting night for the Lakers, and really couldn't have gone any better. I'm sure if you ask Coach Hilbers, he couldn't have asked for a better first game and start to the season.
Yeah, that is for sure. As the Lakers came out swinging from the jump, particularly defensively, that's where they made their money last night on this ball game. Obviously, it's a shutout. You don't allow any points, but it was really the defense that set up multiple opportunities for the offense throughout that game.
Yeah, really, and we expected this defensive front to really be the driving force of this defense and really come out and set the tone. But it was a young secondary that came out and really opened up this game and said, we are not losing one of our few home games, and especially our first home game.
Yeah, and really from the beginning, that first defensive play that ended up in the end zone, Corey Pittman, chops as they call him, took it into the end zone on just the third play of the game. Less than 20 seconds into the game, the Lakers had a 6-0 lead. And this is for a guy that really had an excellent game last night and has had a comeback in the game of football. He plays basketball. He played football as a freshman, took some years off the game, and now coming back into the fold as a varsity player this season, already making an impact. And you also saw guys like Jamal Shakespeare in that clip you just saw on Civic Center TV.com with an interception too. That secondary was absolutely lethal, especially early in the game as Chippewa Valley had a little bit of a struggle on the ground and tried to establish their air game.
Yeah, Chippewa was honestly lucky that they only had those handful of turnovers, because there was a few times where Jordan Allis got his hand on the ball. Chops Robinson almost got his hand on the ball again. And there was also a forced fumble that Chippewa Valley was lucky enough that went out of bounds instead of falling in the Lakers' hands. So really, it was just a phenomenal night all around for the defense, who didn't let Chippewa get anything going whatsoever.
And we got to give our flowers to that defensive line also. They prevented Chippewa Valley's offensive line, which is one of their strengths, from opening up holes for the running backs, in particular Deagle, not really able to get a lot involved in that game. And even Caleb Folks, who was the primary ball handler for most of that game offensively for the Big Reds. And they shut him down. And that's something that Coach Hilbers and Coach Jones and company really wanted to see in game number one. Get that defensive line so stout, so big, and stopping the running game.
Yeah, really, they couldn't get anything going out of a traditional run set for the most part. A lot of the success they had was with Caleb Folks out of the Wildcat, or with him at quarterback taking direct snaps. But really, that defensive front, you can't speak highly enough of it. Tank Pittman really holding it down. But they did not let anything get going against a Chippewa Valley team who Coach Wilson said going into the week, running the ball was one of the things that this Chippewa Valley team wants to do first and foremost.
Jeremiah Benson also having an excellent game as a shutdown defensive tackle too. Multiple key stops throughout that ball game that prevented Chippewa Valley from getting into more favorable territory and ultimately limiting their number of first downs throughout that game. Not only on the ground, but in the air, the Lakers shutting down Chippewa Valley in that 42-0 ball game. Matt Catoni is with me, the color commentator for our live coverage of West Bloomfield Laker football all throughout the season, as the Lakers are 1-0 going into week number 2, a 42-0 victory on Thursday night at West Bloomfield High School as they took on Clinton Township, Chippewa Valley. On the offensive side, Matt, a little bit of a similar tale to Chippewa Valley early on, really not able to establish much of anything as the Lakers wanted to start off establishing the running game, but Chippewa Valley's got a strong front seven themselves. Eventually, the Lakers were able to wake that up, and a lot of that goes behind their star senior running back, Joshua Tate.
Yeah, those first few drives, you kind of saw them, struggle, not necessarily struggle, but getting only like 3 or 4 yards per carry. But as that game went on and we got into the second quarter, you started to see those 5 yards carries, those 6 yards carries. Until then, it culminated like with what you're seeing right now, that 40-yard touchdown carry, that 10-yard touchdown carry. Just as the game went on and further, you saw Josh Tate almost running harder. And you saw the same from Obi Duru. But we just saw this physical run game from the Lakers, especially coming from the running backs who just refused to go down at first contact.
Yeah, Josh Tate, our Laker player of the game on the broadcast last night, had a chance to speak with Kevin at the end of the game. That full game and that interview on CivicCenterTV.com and across our social media, where all of our Laker football games and our coverage all season long will be placed. We are your home for West Bloomfield Laker football. Another interesting dynamic, Matt, and this is something we anticipated for the Lakers in 2024. A two-quarterback system, a multi-quarterback system, with Bo Jackson taking the majority of the snaps as the Lakers' starting quarterback. But we also saw a lot of Jamal Shakespeare in different sets and a little bit of Jackson Carver late in the game, and really showed the versatility in that quarterbacking room for the Lakers.
Yeah, really. Shakespeare and Jackson both were tremendous. And then it was very important to get Carver some of those late second half reps if he's going to be the starter later on in his career. But it was just very impressive seeing those top two quarterbacks, Bo Jackson and Jamal Shakespeare, just come in and flash in separate ways. Shakespeare kind of getting the offense going, giving it a little bit of a kickstart with his running ability, and just the seamless ability with Bo Jackson on throwing. The zip on his passes was incredible, with him almost just flicking his wrist.
Yeah, then they bring something so different to the offense for each of them. You can kind of run on the ground a little bit more and out of a wildcat or an option system with Jamal Shakespeare. You can kind of do the same dynamic with Bo Jackson, but like you said, much more of a pocket presence quarterback, something we haven't really seen from West Bloomfield since C.J. Harris, and certainly before him in the days of Bryce Veasley as well, as the Lakers have had those kind of pocket quarterbacks that can zip the ball in the past. That opens them up to so much more, and even despite that, we didn't really see a whole lot of involvement from the receiving game last night. It was really a lot on the ground, a little bit of action from Cameron Flowers, and of course a touchdown from Elijah Durham. But that's something that's maybe not necessarily a point of disappointment for the Lakers from last night. Maybe something promising that the run game was so prolific that passing game is only going to be able to wake up as weeks go on.
Yeah, it's not the worst thing, because it's just going to make the passing game and play action game that much more effective, because you're going to see teams coming into games now very worried about how dominant this offensive line is and how skillful both Jamal Shakespeare and Josh Tate are as runners, that they're going to commit heavily to stopping the run, which should open up some deep balls for Elijah Durham.
Matt Catoni with me on the Splash Live, our color commentator for West Bloomfield Laker football each and every week. Join us on Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM for our coverage all season long. It's also where you'll find This Week in Laker Football, where I'll talk with Coach Zach Hilbers about each week's game, preview the week ahead, and talk to some players and some coaches for additional insight. That is your insider source for West Bloomfield Laker football all season long. So, Matt, 42-0 victory for the Lakers on Family Fun Night on Thursday, but still plenty of football left to play. Now they go on the road for a couple of games that are going to be in tough environments, going up against Birmingham Groves out of the OAA White, and then their tough road matchup to start their divisional play in the OAA Red at Rochester Adams. So as we head into week 2 against Birmingham Groves, what are you looking to see out of this Laker team to not only show that they're a strong team in 2024, but that first game wasn't a fluke? They won that 42-0 on their merits.
I'm almost kind of looking for short-term memory. Like you said, 24-hour rule. Don't get too high, don't get too low. But going to next week, focused, determined, seemingly kind of forgetting about winning 42-0 the first week, but going in and handling their business, being determined, and kind of emulating what they did in week 1 and limiting their mistakes.
Yeah, and that's kind of what this team has already been focused on coming into the season. Don't get too high on your wins or too low on when things don't go too well. Focus up and go forward with what you got on this team. Matt, in terms of this game, we know that Josh Tate was our Laker player of the game, and we talked about that secondary having some heavy involvement. Who's someone you think may get more involved in week 2 as the Lakers go on the road to play against Birmingham Groves?
Well, Josh Tate, I think, will certainly be important on the offensive side again this week with the talent that they have on their team with Avery Gosh. And he's a player that could eventually play both ways. We've seen him play offensive and defensive line before. If he travels over side of the offensive line of the ball, that's going to be a key matchup with Tank Pittman, where he will likely be tasked with having to stop that run game or get past Gak.
Yeah, that's going to be a tough matchup going up against a blue chip recruit that is heading to the University of Michigan next fall, and that's going to be a tough matchup for the West Bloomfield Lakers on that defensive line, and he also plays a little bit on the defensive line himself, and so that could also play into factor as we head into week 2 on the road against Birmingham Groves. Someone I'm looking to see get more involved next week is Obi Duru. I think he had an excellent game in week 1 for the Lakers, kind of gives that alternative to Josh Tate out of the backfield, and also we'll probably see more involvement in the air game. We know last year when the Lakers opened up their OAA play in that crossover, same location, week 2, just like a year ago, they went to the air game for that. It was all Rick Nance and Elijah Durham and Cam Flowers and Marquise Morris and Brandon Davis Swain out of the air. So I'd expect a little bit of the same from the Lakers, but now that added element of having that rushing game. These younger players going to get more heavily involved as we go forward. Matt, any lasting thoughts from last evening's game as we wrap up here today?
Yeah, just that, I mean, going to a MAC school myself in high school, I can't really recall a time that I've seen Chippewa Valley, just lose by that many points, but be beaten on the field that bad. It wasn't just that they won 42-0. They dominated the game in almost every facet, and this just looks like it is a very talented Lakers team.
Yeah, Coach Hilbert's telling the Oakland Press that despite the score, that doesn't tell the whole story of that Chippewa Valley team. Quote, they are a program that is used to winning, and I know they will recover and bounce back. They're better than what the score had showed, end quote. That from a Oakland Press article from Drew Ellis of PlayMichigan.com. Nonetheless, an impressive win for the Lakers, showing out for their home audience as they open the 2024 season on a mission to not only get to Ford Field, but to come home with the hardware on Thanksgiving weekend. Matt, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.